We're up. Peace and light. The Old Guy Australia. Like, share, subscribe. Hit the notification button, then you'll know when I'm doing a video. Like, share, subscribe. Very important. If you want to recommend this to other people to join my channel, I'd be much appreciative of it. Help get me off the bottom. Now, what's so important about today, 15th of October, Sunday, here in Australia? Well, at lunchtime, Sam Goodin's fighting, who's a grandson of a friend of ours, and Kostya Tszyu, but that's another story entirely. Today we've woken to the news which we knew was coming, which was that the people of Australia had voted no to the Voice referendum. It doesn't make me happy. In fact, I'm still a little nervous about it because I have my reservations. I'll get to that later on in this video. So I just want to touch on this briefly because everybody else will. You know, I don't do a lot of videos because I don't really necessarily have a lot to say, and I want to make what I do have a video to do and have something to say. I want to make it relevant and important. So, 6 months ago? Let's say the polls were showing that the no vote was always going to win. And when Albanese was pressed, Prime Minister Albanese here in Australia, was pressed as to why he was going to continue with it, he said, because the Indigenous people of Australia have asked me for this voice to Parliament. And so I made it a promise that while I was in government, I would, support them, and bloody frickin' blah. Right? It was just a load of shit. The 300 people who were involved in this, 300 people, most of them are embedded within the corporation. They're embedded within the system. If you ask Dave Cole or Bruce Shillingsworth or those other people, and I'll tell you that these people are people who are riding on the back of the sheep. They're people who have skin in the game. They're ones who are benefiting financially from a lot of this stuff. But when you get out to the remote communities, like Jacinta Price says, in the very remote rural communities of Australia, where there's Indigenous people out there, you'd be lucky to get $5 out of 100 makes it to the ground. It just doesn't. It's already gone before it gets to these communities, and these communities are lacking. They're saying, oh, well, the NIAA, National Indigenous Australian Association of Australia, whatever it's called, NIAA, gets $3 billion a year in funding. $3 billion a year in funding. And the people who are involved in upper management in this are on bloated salaries. Trust me, they're on bloated salaries. But the total to the Indigenous communities in Australia is $35 billion a year, and that's spread out over 3,000 different organisations, Indigenous organisations throughout Australia, and we have 11 senators within the Australian government who claim Indigenous heritage. Now, I would think that that's enough to say that we've already got a voice to Parliament, so we knew straight from the get-go that there was a reason behind this. And Prime Minister Albanese kept saying, oh, well, the voice first, treaty second. And the Indigenous people that we know were saying, no way, you got it the wrong way around, son, cart before the horse, treaty first, then the voice second, because the treaty is the most important thing. That's the most important thing for Indigenous people of Australia. And I'm not going to go into the politics of it. Suffice to say that the Indigenous people of Australia have never ceded Australia to the British government. They never have. Not like the American Indians did to the British when they colonised over there and they ceded the lands for a bag of bloody, glass beads or whatever. Not happening here in Australia. Those treaties have never been in place. So the Indigenous people know that the government that's currently on the land here in Australia is a false government. Now, I don't want to get into the politics of that, and you can say that's bullshit, conspiracy theory, whatever you want. But those who are involved, like Josephine Cashman, a wonderful Indigenous lawyer, they know the full extent of this, and so we'll just leave it there on the table. Now, people say to me, Owen, why are you so a vocal opponent to the voice? Why don't the Indigenous people just have a voice to Parliament? What's so wrong with that? Why are you so against that? What are you, racist? And I'm going, no, if I vote yes, I'm racist. Because the rest vote was only ever meant to divide the country into race. One group is going to get favours and you're not. And that was a slap in the face for every immigrant who ever came to Australia, because they would just say, well, you're last on the table, buddy. So, because it's divided by, what do they call it? Indigeneity. This is the new term, a little flashcard getting thrown around, meaning how long you've lived here for. So, here's the thing. Why was I opposed to the no, to the yes, but why was I supporting the no vote from the get-go? Well, here's what it is. The government is supposed to be representative of the people. They are employed by us. They represent us. They do as they're told by us. And somewhere over the decades, this has changed. It's changed dramatically to the point where the governments are now dictating to the people and telling the people what they're going to do, not asking the people what they need or want. And this is where it's all got very murky. And people are accepting this. It's been that huge societal change. We're the employers. They are employees. They represent us with our money. Where do we lose sight of this? So then we have a government that came out and said, look, this is white. It's a white remote. Now, some people might say this is a black remote. We don't really know. We don't know how it is. So what we're going to do, we're going to hold a referendum. We're going to say, you vote. You tell us whether you think it's a white remote or a black remote. We don't know. But if you tell us it's white, we'll say it's white. If you tell us it's black, we'll say it's black. That's a referendum. That's fair. That's unbiased. There it is. So here's the referendum. It's going to come up in October. And you guys go and vote and you tell us what you think. That would be a referendum. That would be what a government would do to a people and with a people and for a people. That would be a fair referendum. But they didn't. From the opening salvo way back, they came out and said, we're going to hold a referendum and we, the government, are not going to be unbiased. We are going to support one side of this argument and one side only. And not only that, we're going to take your money, the taxpayer, no matter what you believe or what you think or which side you're on, doesn't matter. We're taking your money and we're going to use it over here to support the side that we want supported. And I'm like, hang on a second. That's not a referendum and that's not fair and that's not unbiased. That's not how this is supposed to work. That's my tax dollar. I'm voting no. You're taking my tax dollar to vote to support a yes campaign. That's wrong. It's unethical. You can't be doing that. That is not a referendum. Why couldn't people see this at the start? We spent $330 million of Australian taxpayers' money to support a yes campaign. We spent $5 million of Australian tax money paying celebrities to support a yes campaign. We took in $120 million in donations from private, elite, white, rich businessmen to support the yes campaign. We spent the bloody lot. Well, we think we did. We don't know even where it's gone. I don't know if they're even going to tell you where all that money's gone. Whose pockets got lined? We don't even know. And we probably never will know. But some people got very wealthy out of it. Trust me on that, including advertising agencies. Now, we're going to spend all that money to support one side of the campaign, and if you don't support us, you're racist. How are people thinking this is a referendum? And if anything else, despite the race issue, which was going to divide Australia and the nation by including the Indigenous people into the Constitution and singling them out as a individual race of people with special privileges, despite that, most people in Australia, I think, who voted no, did so because they couldn't understand what the government was saying or doing and why they were pushing one side of the damn vote and not spending a cent on the other side. There was no balance to this ever. And so that let off a few red flags for me because it was so obvious. When things are that obvious, there's something else going on. And that was the problem for me. And to this day, despite the fact we had a victory yesterday, and it was obvious in the first half an hour that it was all gone to shit for the government. We knew that. Despite that fact, I am still nervous because I think something else has taken place and we don't know what it is and we won't know what it is for some time, but something else has taken place. Maybe Bosie was right. Bosie put out a video about this, about voting and being involved in the voting. And there were two sides to that as well. And I'm like, but if he's got something right here, if something he has said there is correct, then whatever else has taken place in this has been one of the most deceptive cons of the Australian people we've ever seen. And I'll wait and see what happens there because that information will come out over time. But when you broke down the voting figures, you would have seen, if you'd had a look at it, I only had a cursory glance, that the biggest supporters of this campaign were in the wealthy areas, like North Shore, Double Bay, Cremorne in Sydney, the wealthy areas in South Australia, in Adelaide, and the wealthy areas in Perth Central itself. All the wealthy white areas were the ones that had the largest yes vote. That comes as no surprise to me. People who are wealthy, well off, white, affluent, and have no they're not in touch in normal reality with the average Australian person. They're not. They don't live the same life. They've got to move in different circles. They have whole different lives. They're just out of touch with reality. But they know which side their bread's buttered on, and the government was urging them to support their campaign, and they obediently followed, because that's what you do when you're an affluent white person in Australia. You follow the government of the day because you want to get your bread buttered both sides. But when they move down into the rural areas, and in particular what they're not telling you is in Indigenous communities, the largest amount of votes for no were found in those areas. Now that makes sense to me. Those people out there are the backbone of Australia, the working class, and the Indigenous people who this is supposed to help. And as one Indigenous person said to me, which I think is a wonderful thing, you would have seen it going around, because others have said it as well, it's the hypocrisy of whiteness that white Australia would ask the people to put a voice in the Constitution for black people. I mean, the hypocrisy is ridiculous. And it always was ridiculous, but that wasn't really what the issue was. The issue was an underlying goal they were trying to achieve with the WHO, and we know about that. And that's why they didn't want the treaty first. That's why Albanese kept saying, voice first, treaty second. And the Indigenous people go, no, that's not how this is. It can't have it that way, because then we cede our sovereignty. And I understand that, won't get into it in great detail. But suffice to say that there's some extremely wealthy Indigenous people have benefited from this entire campaign over the last 6 months. And that is the saddest thing. When I look at the facts and figures that Jacinta Price, you need to have a look at Jacinta Price and go and look at some of the facts and figures she reveals about remote Indigenous communities with rape, incest, domestic violence, etc., etc. It is horrendous. It is absolutely horrendous. The money is not getting to the ground in those areas. It's not. It's being swallowed up by a top-heavy corporations like the NIAA and the 3,000 Indigenous organisations around Australia. They are benefiting enormously. But the people on the ground are not. So if you want to change Indigenous Australia, that's what you have to look at. That's what you have to look at. We need to have an immediate Royal Commission into the NIAA and an audit. Find out where their $3 billion a year goes, or where the $35 billion a year, right throughout Indigenous organisations in Australia, where that's going, because it is not hitting the ground. It's not. And there are too many people who are gulping this down and really benefiting financially from this windfall. But it is not the people on the ground. They are suffering because the money isn't getting there. Anyway, that's all I had to say. Thank you for the comments and the messages about my video. I was going to do it the other day. I was really hot-headed, hot under the collar, a bit of steam coming off, and I decided to let it go for the moment because it is a very tricky video to do with Palestine and Israel. But I assure you again, we've had 4 years of watching this crap unfold on TV. We know the media lies. We know they manipulate. We know they set things up. And now they're using AI. You need to understand that whatever you're being shown on TV, trust me, it is not truth. It is absolutely not truth. All right? Don't just believe it's true. Don't throw things at me going, oh my God, there's all these babies and things. Don't go there. Don't go there. There's an element of truth, and they take that element of truth and they make it into a huge lie. And you're not being told what's really going on. And I'll try and do that video as quickly as I can in the next few days. In the meantime, peace and light, that old guy Australia, who doesn't choose sides, right? You've got to keep your eyes open and just look for truth. And if you want to know what truth is, believe everything's a lie and work towards trying to prove what it is. If you start by believing something to be a truth, you have nowhere to go. Peace and light, that old guy Australia. Like, share, subscribe, hit the notification button, and we'll catch you soon.